Newly released court documents reveal what prosecutors are asking for and include emotional statements from the couple's 3 sons. Prosecutors are asking the court to sentence Richins to life without the possibility of parole.
She wrote a children's book about grief. She gave media interviews about how devastating it was to raise 3 boys without their father. She stood in front of cameras and let the world watch her perform widowhood. And then prosecutors say her own children blew the whole story apart. Because when those boys finally got their chance to speak to the court, they didn't describe grief. They described fear. The kind of fear a child isn't supposed to have about anyone, let alone their own mother. And here's the detail that will stay with you long after this video ends. The sentencing hearing for Kouri Richins was scheduled for May 13th, 2026, Eric Richins' birthday, the day he would have turned 44. His sons sat in that courtroom on what should have been a birthday. And what came out of those boys' mouths word for word, as recorded in the prosecutor's sentencing memo, is something that changes how you understand this entire case. Here's what you need to know about where we are in this case. Kouri Richins, 35, was convicted on March 16th, 2026, guilty on all counts: aggravated murder, attempted aggravated murder, insurance fraud, forgery. The jury believed prosecutors when they laid out what happened at the Richins home near Park City, Utah on the night of March 3rd, 2022. Eric Richins, a Utah businessman, drank a Moscow Mule his wife prepared for him. Prosecutors said it contained 5 times the lethal dose of fentanyl. He was found dead in their bedroom the next morning. But what most people don't know, and what the sentencing documents now confirm, is that Eric Richins had already survived 1 attempt before that night. Valentine's Day, 2022. Just weeks earlier, a fentanyl-laced sandwich, prosecutors say, that made Eric black out. He survived. And according to the case, Kouri learned from that. She tried again, and this time, she didn't miss.
Richard!
Look, Chachi's still going. Ron, turn that all empty out here.
Oh!
You're an Afghanistan warrior.
You are an Afghanistan warrior.
But here's where the story stops being just about the crime and starts being about what was happening inside that house while 3 young children were sleeping. On the night Eric Richins died, Kouri would later tell a 911 operator that she discovered him cold to the touch in their bedroom. She said she had been sleeping in her middle son's room because the boy had a nightmare. That detail was supposed to explain everything. It was supposed to account for her whereabouts. It was supposed to make the timeline make sense. But the middle son, now 11 years old, just told the court a completely different story. According to the prosecutor's sentencing memo, the boy remembered that night in specific detail. He said he was put to bed unusually early, without a bath, that he noticed his parents' bedroom door was locked, that the television inside was blaring loud enough that it struck him as strange. At some point during the night, he got up. He found a broom. He used the broom to try to reach the key that would open that locked bedroom door. And his mother yelled at him to go away. His mother, from inside that locked room, where Eric Richins was dying. Think about what that means for just a moment. Because this isn't a detail investigators reconstructed. This came from the child who was there. The child who tried to get to his father. The child who was turned away. And Kouri Richins allegedly used this same boy as her alibi, telling investigators she had been in his room all night. He was 7 years old when his father died. He's 11 now, and he remembered everything. That single detail may have undone the alibi entirely, and the prosecutor knew it, which is exactly why it ended up in the sentencing memo. Prosecutor Brad Bloodworth filed it ahead of the May 13th hearing, and the language he used about Kouri Richins was not careful. It was not diplomatic. He called her character irredeemable. That word irredeemable carries legal weight. It tells the judge, there is no version of rehabilitation here. There is no future scenario in which releasing this woman serves the public good or the good of these children. The prosecution asked for life without the possibility of parole. And to make their case, Bloodworth didn't rely only on the facts of the murder itself. He pointed to what Kouri did after the verdict. Because after a jury found her guilty on all counts in March, Kouri Richins allegedly sent a text message to someone described only as an admirer. And what she wrote, according to prosecutors, reads less like grief and more like a threat. She allegedly wrote, "So they can lock me away for now. That's fine. It's going to come back on them. I am going to expose them all for what they have done to me, my kids, my family. This injustice. They picked the wrong one. They think sentencing is the end, closure, it's just the beginning. They haven't seen anything yet." No remorse. No acknowledgement of what her children had been through. No mention of Eric. Just promises of exposure. Just promises of retaliation. Bloodworth also told the court that from behind bars, Kouri had allegedly made false criminal and civil allegations against Eric's family, his sisters, his father, and members of law enforcement. People who had spent years trying to get justice for Eric. People who are now raising his sons. The prosecutor's argument was clear. This isn't a woman who has reflected on what she's done. This is a woman who is still fighting the war she started. And here's the part that should make you stop and think. If the minimum sentence is 25 years, and she serves exactly that, Kouri Richins walks out of prison when her youngest son is in his mid-30s. The prosecution made sure the judge understood those numbers. Not as an abstract legal calculation, but as a reality those boys would carry with them every single day. Now let's talk about what the oldest son said, because this is where this case shifts entirely. He was 9 when his father died. He is 13 now, and he chose to address the court. He told prosecutors on record, for submission to a judge, that he does not miss his mother. Not a complicated, "I love her but I'm angry." Not the ambivalence you might expect from a child talking about a parent. He said he does not miss her. He said his father was a good person who helped whoever needed help. And then he said this: "I'm afraid if she gets out, she will come after me and my brothers, my whole family. I think she would come and take us and not do good things to us, like hurt us." Read that again. A 13-year-old child is afraid that if his mother leaves prison, she will hurt him and his brothers. He's not expressing sadness about a broken family. He's expressing a threat assessment, the kind of calculation a child should never have to make about anyone, let alone the woman who gave birth to him. He also said something that was almost harder to process than the fear. "I miss my dad, but I do not miss how my life used to be. I don't miss Kouri." He didn't call her mom. He used her name. Prosecutors also noted that the Utah Division of Child and Family Services had documented findings of emotional and physical abuse of this oldest child by Kouri findings contained in a sealed court document. The agency's spokesperson confirmed their records are heavily protected when minors are involved, so the details remain sealed. But the fact that those findings exist and that prosecutors chose to include them in the sentencing memo tells you something. This wasn't just about Eric's murder anymore. Prosecutors were arguing that these boys had been in harm's way for far longer than one terrible night in March 2022. The middle son's account we already know, the locked door, the broom, the yelling from inside the room. But what he also said to the court goes beyond that night. He described the fear of his mother ever being released. He said he wouldn't feel safe. He described, in a child's words, what it means to live with the knowledge of what happened in that house. He was 7 when he went looking for his father in the middle of the night. He is 11 now. And he told the court, the youngest is perhaps the most devastating. He was 5 years old when Eric Richins died. He was in preschool, too young to understand what death meant, too young to understand what fentanyl meant. too young to understand why his father was gone and his mother was taken away in handcuffs. But he understood enough to tell prosecutors this. When someone talks about Kouri, it makes me feel hateful and ashamed. She took away my dad. He didn't say my mom. He said Kouri, same as his older brother. And then he said, if she got out, I would be so scared. I'm worried she would take me away. Once she is gone, I will feel happy, and I will feel safer and relaxed and trust people more. A child who was in preschool 4 years ago just told a court that the day his mother is permanently gone is the day he will learn to trust people again. Let that land. Now share this video with someone who needs to hear this case, because what these 3 boys said to that court is something that needs to be talked about. The details in these documents have barely made national headlines, and people need to know what's in those filings. Here's something the public didn't fully understand about this case for a long time. Eric Richins didn't die completely by surprise, not in the sense that he had no awareness that something was wrong. According to statements made to CBS News' 48 Hours, Eric had told his family before his death, "If I die, you need to take a look at her, because I think she's trying to kill me." He said that, and then he died. His family fought for years to be heard. They pushed investigators. They kept asking questions long after the initial death was treated as suspicious. And when Kouri's book, Are You With Me?, came out in 2023, presenting Eric as a guardian angel, watching over his children from above, it was Eric's family that was quietly working to ensure she faced trial. She published that book. She went on a local Utah television program to talk about helping children process grief. She wrote the words, "Yes, I am with you on Christmas. You can't see my smile, but it's there." Words she put in Eric's voice. Words she published under her own name. And all of it, prosecutors say, was the performance of a woman who had just killed her husband and was trying to become untouchable. But here's what didn't fit the picture. Kouri Richins, at the time of Eric's death, was millions of dollars in debt. She had a house-flipping real estate business that was failing. She had secretly taken out multiple life insurance policies on Eric without his knowledge, reportedly expecting to inherit more than $4 million from his estate. And she had a separate relationship with her handyman that she was allegedly planning a future with. The prosecution's argument was never that this was a crime of passion or a moment of desperation. It was a calculated plan, with a motive, with a method, and with a second attempt when the first one didn't finish the job. Now step back and look at what this sentencing hearing actually was. Legally, it was about punishment, about whether Kouri Richins would spend the rest of her life in prison or whether she would one day be eligible for parole. But emotionally, it was about credibility. Because on one side of that courtroom, you had a woman who had presented herself to the world as a grieving mother, who wrote a book for her children about loss, who gave interviews, who claimed the investigation was corrupt and the verdict was unjust, and who, even after conviction, was allegedly sending texts promising she would expose them all. And on the other side, 3 boys, ages 13, 11, and somewhere in early elementary school. Boys who don't call their mother Mom in their statements. Boys who associate her name with shame and fear and the absence of their father. The prosecution asked the court to consider one specific reality: that these boys should not have to spend their childhoods wondering if a parole board might someday decide to let their mother go free. They should not have to mark the date on a calendar. They should not have to revisit their father's murder at future hearings. Prosecutor Bloodworth wrote, "The boys deserve finality and should not have to revisit their father's murder at future hearings or worry about the defendant's potential parole." And then he made the case plainly. Most importantly, no other sentence can provide the children the comfort and protection that they need and deserve. And then there's the date. May 13th, 2026. Eric Richins would have turned 44. The defense had tried to delay sentencing, and Judge Richard Mrazek refused. He ruled that postponing the hearing would cause significant prejudice to the children. Not to the case, to the children. So on what would have been Eric's birthday, his 3 sons sat in a courtroom and asked a judge to make sure their mother never walks free again. Not out of anger, not for revenge. Out of fear. The oldest asked it. The middle child asked it. The youngest, who was barely out of preschool when his father died, asked it in the most heartbreaking words imaginable. Once she is gone, I will feel happy, and I will feel safer and relaxed and trust people more. Birthdays are supposed to mean something different than that. They're supposed to mean something hopeful, something warm. Instead, this one meant a courtroom, a sentencing memo, and 3 boys asking the justice system to do what their father can no longer do for them, keep them safe. What happens next is now in Judge Richard Mrazek's hands. The aggravated murder conviction alone carries either 25 years to life or life without parole. Prosecutors want the sentences on all 5 felony counts to run consecutively stacked, one after the other, which would effectively guarantee she never leaves prison regardless of what the parole board decides. Kouri Richins also faces more than 24 additional money-related criminal charges in a completely separate case that has not yet gone to trial. That case is still ahead. And the boys, they're being cared for by Eric's family. The same family that suspected something was wrong for years. The same family that kept pushing. They are focused, by all accounts, on giving those 3 children stability, a sense of normal, the kind of childhood their father would have wanted them to have. Here's the truth about this case that the headlines never quite capture. It was never just about fentanyl. It was never just about insurance policies or debt or a secret relationship. It was about a family. A father who told people he was afraid for his life. 3 boys who went to sleep in that house and woke up in a completely different world. And a woman who prosecutors say made them go through all of it while she was still in the next room. And now, years later, those boys have spoken. Not through lawyers, not through investigators. In their own words, they said they don't miss her. They said they're afraid of her. And one of them, still young enough to remember almost nothing of his father, said the day she's permanently gone is the day he'll finally feel safe. That's not a legal argument. That's a child telling you everything you need to know. If you're still here, if you stayed through all of that, drop a comment and tell me which part of these boys' statements hit you hardest. The middle son at the locked door. The oldest calling her by her first name. Or the youngest, who can barely remember his father, saying he'll feel happy when she's gone. This case is far from finished. The additional charges are still ahead. The sentencing outcome is still ahead. And these boys still have a lifetime of recovery in front of them. We'll be covering all of it.